What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, Joker back again once again. So, the newest Bungie info dump has arrived. It has graced us with its presence, a 15-minute video documentary, a Vidoc as the kids call it, that outlines everything we can expect from Beyond Light and teases for us Season 12. Now, for starters, there's not a whole lot of new information on the Beyond Light side. The Vidoc in and of itself basically condenses down the various twabs from over the last few months and does so in a way that any good YouTuber would, spending 15 minutes explaining shit people already know, but with a better production value, then taking time to talk about things nobody actually cares about. However, what Bungie does do is they talk about the ideological conflict between the light and the darkness.
Players are going to go on a journey to discover the true nature of light and dark.
It's the beginning of players learning more about the darkness.
What makes something bad? What makes darkness dark?
Who's right? Who wasn't?
Beyond Light's really the beginning of a new adventure. Guardians for the longest time have been bathed in the light, sort of this altruistic force fighting back evil, and now we're starting to move into that gray area between the light and dark.
This conflict between the light and the darkness was excellently laid out over a year ago in the Book of the Unveiling. This isn't a criticism, by the way. I'm just saying if you want a heads up on the moral conflict between the light and the darkness's ultimate argument against the light, go read the Book of the Unveiling. It's a really great book. In my opinion, honestly, it's one of the best lore entries in Destiny canon because, well, it actually moves the story forward and gives us some insight into the universe. Who knew that that's something people wanted? But if you allow me to digress for a moment, highlights from the Book of the Unveiling include sections like this. Your shoemaker philosopher was right, and it matters more than anything. Sorrow cannot survive death, and it cannot precede birth. Those who exist have moral worth. Those who do not have none. Think about it. Do you mourn the uncreated? Do you grieve for those who were never born? In a nation that never developed? Around an ideology no one ever imagined? On a continent that never formed? No. And from that self-evident truth, you must raise your eyes to the ultimate revelation. Those who cannot sustain their own claim to existence belong in the same moral category as those who never existed at all. Existence is the first and truest proof of the right to exist. Those who cannot claim and hold existence do not deserve it. This is the true and only division, a game whose losers are not just forgotten, but are never born at all. That which cannot claim and hold existence is not real. You do not mourn the unreal. Why should you care for it? Tend it. Guard it. It was the gardener who chose you from the dead. I wouldn't have done that. It's just not in me. But now that they have invested themselves in you, you are incredibly, uniquely special. That wandering refugee chose to make a stand, spend their power to say, here, I prove myself right. Here, I wager that, given power over physics and the trust of absolute freedom, people will choose to build and protect a gentle kingdom ringed in spears and not fall to temptation, and not surrender to division, and never yield to the cynicism that says, everyone else is so good. I can afford to be a little evil. The gardener's all in. They're playing for keeps. And they're wrong. Or so I argue. For, after all, the universe is undecidable. There is no destiny. We're all making this up as we go along. Neither the gardener nor I know for certain that we are eternally, universally right. But we can be nothing except for what we are. You have a choice. It would mean everything if I could convince you that I am the right and only way. I truly value you. To the gardener, you are a means to an end. To me, you are majestic. Majestic. You are full of the only thing worth anything at all. I am, by the only standard that matters, or will ever matter, the winning team. Existence is a test that most will fail. Would you not count yourself among the victorious few? Don't hurry to deliver your answer. I'll come over and hear it myself. And you know what? As cynical as all that sounds, in the early cards of the Book of the Unveiling, we find out that the light, the gardener, is the one that made these rules and roles for both of them to play. It's the light who casts the darkness as the bad guy. It was the light who threw a temper tantrum about how reality worked and decided to change the fundamental laws of existence from the ground up, much to the protest and the horror of the winnower, or the darkness. When Luke Smith says,
Who's right? Who wasn't?
the darkness is, morally speaking, in the right. We are nothing more than pieces on a chessboard in a great game that has transcended existence since, well, existence. And we are being played by the light and the darkness. Now, that's not to say that everything is black and white. For the darkness to win, the light must lose. For the darkness to lose, the light must win. And I honestly don't see that being the end of Destiny. In fact, I think Ghost Fragment Mysteries 2 has it right. A star, I think. We count on stars as steady friends because they always rise and they always shine, but a star is a delicate truce, an explosion caught by its own mass so that it can't erupt and can't collapse. Thus, I imagine the state of the machine might be. But one force or another has gone awry, and now rests here, snuffed and broken, waiting for the two rival forms of ruin to be set in balance again. This is also why I think the Vex are ultimately the true, air quote, true antagonist of Destiny, as their goal is to ultimately write themselves into existence as a fundamental law of existence, like the light and like the darkness. The Hive just simply aren't that ambitious, and ultimately, they are a tool of the darkness. And given what we understand about the complexity between Savathun and the Darkness's relationship, I don't see that narrative plot ending anywhere else than at the end of a 45. Now, some of you might be wondering why I've gone off into left field when it comes to the law. Well, this is the story of Destiny, and Beyond Light will boil this down and distill it into a story about House Dark versus the Light, light-based powers versus darkness-based powers, Aldrin versus the Crow, and versus us. In fact, one of the more holy fucking shit did that actually just happen moments for me during the Vidoc was this.
One by one, we will rise again. Today, we begin breaking free from our chains.
Aramis really challenges a lot of the ways that we think about light and darkness.
The reason that this is such a mind-blowing moment is servitors create ether. Ether is literally what feed the fallen. Yeah, by the way, our killing servitors is basically us starving baby dregs to death. So there is that. And you can tell that this is tantamount to sacrilege because of the Fallen Who's Gathered's reaction to Aramis killing the servitor.
We think about light and darkness.
They're all looking at this like, yo, Aramis, you don't do that. She does it, however, because the Traveler is the reason that the Fallen need ether. This is why the servitors are in the shape of the Traveler. And by destroying the servitor, Aramis is saying, no more. No more will we depend on the devices of the Traveler who abandoned us in our hour of need. We have another way. But I'm rambling, so let's move on. Most of the Vidoc, like I said at the top of the video, is things we already know, things that we've already talked about, like...
Stasis is, not just a set of new supers, but it's a new damage type. We've got Solar, Void, Arc, and now we've got Stasis.
The idea for Stasis all really came back from the gameplay idea of freezing someone.
Once he freezes solid, I'm able to hit him again and just shatter him in pieces.
Then you start getting into like the more interesting parts, things that we're calling aspects and fragments, which are additional ways to modify your subclass. Aspects are a little bit more potent, and then the fragments are the things that are class agnostic, but depending on what your class is and depending on what your aspects are and how you want to play, you're probably going to be starting to select different ones in there.
Like I said, basically every Bungie update for the last few weeks condensed into one 15-minute video. The one thing that I will comment on here though, oh dear Lord God, no why, PvP is fucked. So here we see the darkness subclasses using exotic armor pieces. I was hoping, nay, praying that Bungie would balance out the new darkness subclasses at fucking least until they updated the old subclasses of, Arc, Solar, and Void by making it to where artifacts basically functioned as the new exotic armor for Stasis subclasses, meaning Stasis subclasses didn't have access to exotic armor. Boy, was I way too fucking hopeful. I mean, this ability here shown on the screen being displayed literally has the same effect as Vesper of Radiance, only way fucking better because instead of just slightly staggering the enemies, it freezes them. Now, I don't know about you, but in my book, that's, way better. Look, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, I'm just saying, after this, after Beyond Light releases, if anyone ever dares, deigns, or even supposes to mildly argue that Destiny 2 takes any skill whatsoever, laugh at them. Laugh at them really fucking hard. However, not everything is things that people already knew. Unless you're me. Now, some of you might be quick to remind me,
but Joker, in Destiny 1, there was this huge quest that dealt with the Hive when you first started the game. It's where the wizard, it came from the moon quote comes from.
And you know what, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, you wouldn't be wrong, so I'm really interested to see how this delineates from that quest, or if it's just a blatant copy-paste. But I digress. This is, of course, one of those wait-and-see things.
I am Nostradamus, the voice of God.
So from the snippets we've seen of the new player's story, it looks like we will be playing the Hive portion of Destiny 1 Year 1's story after the Taken King remix, with of course some new context because duh, it'll have to have new context. But we do see the Will of Crota strike. And we do see the last array. And hey, the last array was a banger of a mission, so I get why they'd want to bring it back for people who didn't play Destiny 1. That said, I'm really interested in the context around it and the justification for its use. This is one of those instances where the reuse of content is just odd enough to make me question like, hey, what the fuck is going on and why? Why are we doing the last array mission again? Why is that a thing? Explain! So I'm actually like super interested in this mission, even if it's reused content. And before some fanboy starts screeching in the comments,
but Joker, stop bitching about stuff, blah, 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 blah.
Who's bitching? If you take pointing out abject reality, you know, that thing that is in front of your eyes, and calling a spade and wondering how it's been remixed and reused to tell a new story as bitching, you've lost the fucking plot. But moving right along, next we have the best and simultaneously the worst reveal of the Vidoc in its entirety.
Osiris, the most notorious guardian in Vanguard history.
The Osiris? The most powerful guardian ever. The hero of 6 fronts. The Zavala before Zavala.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Impossible.
Now, of course, like any sane human being, my excitement for Season of the Hunt is tempered by the last, 2 years of seasonal content. But at the same time, there's a difference between being interested in the gameplay loop of something, which looks like it'll be nothing more than a glorified nightmare hunt, but with 99.99999% more glowing green Hive, and being interested in the narrative reason and lore behind it. Look, I'm gonna be real, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be real honest. Not to sound negative or pessimistic, just to sound realistic, I think the in-game storytelling for this year, from Beyond Light to The Witch Queen, is going to be a kind of sort of retread of the last year. But hey, you know what? We did get cool lore. So, I mean, there is that? Now, what do I mean by retread? Well, it looks like Beyond Light will explore what the darkness is and what the darkness wants, while the rest of the year will focus on building alliances like we did last year, but maybe with the Fallen, maybe with the Cabal. and dealing with the pyramid ships, which will ultimately prove to be a misdirection because Savathun was the real enemy all along. All in all, even with bits of this video likely sounding cynical or negative as the fanboys like to accuse me of being, because, you know, it's not outright praise, I liked more of the Beyond Light Vidoc than I didn't, and I am hopeful for the future of Destiny. But I do have reservations about things. Anyone with an actively engaged brain fucking should! Sorry, it is what it is, but hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Let me know what you're excited about in Beyond Light. Let me know what you have reservations about in Beyond Light. And like, but only if you did, subscribe for more of my shenanigans. Feel free to check out my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. But above all else, stay frosty.